Hi G Session viewers, my name is Alyssa Kritzman and I'm the design director of the G Project. For those of you who are new here, welcome, and those of you who are coming back for more, we're so excited to have you. The G Project is a public art campaign focused on dismantling negative ideas about immigrants. And the way that we're doing this is by inviting people to tell their own stories and ask the big question, what is your G status? So the G status really identifies your generation. For example, mine is G1 on my father's side, and I'm a G2 on my mom's side. This means that my father came from elsewhere, and my mom was born in the United States, but her parents came from elsewhere. Through each session, we've invited different guests to accompany them with a personal artifact, piece of music, they can recite a poem, anything that really conveys their own story and heritage. So this season, for season 3, we've invited previous guests to actually be the host and invite their own family members or circle of friends, colleagues, whatever they may be, to them to interview them. And this month, during March, we will be celebrating an all-female lineup to empower and encourage women to tell their stories all month long for Women's History Month. So I hope you tune in every Wednesday at 4 p.m. And at the end of this video, my colleague Richard Pelzer will give you some information as to how you can follow us and where to keep up with everything that's going on. So I hope you enjoy, and without further ado, please welcome our next guest.
Thank you, Elisa. I am Mahen Bonetti, the founder and director of African Film Festival. Today, we're here speaking with Ekwa Msangi, who is a filmmaker, educator, producer, writer, and an AFF veteran, of course. We're really proud to have her as our guest today because Ekwa is also on a roll. She just completed her feature film, Farewell Amor, and it's been delightful to see her journey and to be part of it. Ekwa, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hello.
Yes. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so happy to be here with you, Mahen.
I know the past year we've communicated via telephone, via email, and so it's really good to finally see you through this virtual space, right? And our world has gone through such a transformation this past year, and meanwhile, you've been receiving incredible accolades for your feature film, Farewell Amor.
Thank you.
I hope that the flowers I sent you, the aroma of the flowers I sent you, is engulfing you in the best possible way. You deserve it. You truly deserve it.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really honored to be here with you because we've taken a journey with you. I mean, I met you when you were a student at NYU, some 20 odd years ago, and you came into our lives, and you really, I think we were doing the publication, right? Yes. That was, and then you did Dollar Van. And that was, I mean, I think some people would call it urban anthropology, but I just thought, my God, this young woman really captures the spirit of Africans in the diaspora and on the continent also. Soko Sonko, I mean, which to me is one of the best comedic films ever, and it's an audience favorite of it. Whenever we show it, and we've traveled with it, it's never dated. It really is. It's such a tender story, a beautiful story.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Thank you so much.
It's good to see you, my dear.
Yeah, it is. It's wonderful to actually be able to hang out and spend some time.
Yeah. I look forward to, being in the spring. We can, when the spring comes here, and we can run out in the park and hopefully we can take a class together.
That would be nice.
Anyway, so Ekwa, what propelled you to want to tell stories? And use this medium of cinema.
Yeah.
And also, what is your G status?
Well, I'll start with the question about cinema,
Okay.
because there's you actually are a very big part of that, but it started much earlier when I was, a young one. My family's Tanzanian. We grew up in Kenya, and it was a time in the 80s and 90s in Kenya where we didn't have any local programming other than news and like one or two sort of slapstick comedy type shows, and everything was imported. So there were, the people that I was surrounded with, fun, funny, lively, dramatic family members, neighbors, workers, etc.
Community.
Right,
Yeah.
that I saw every day were never reflected anywhere in our society, and I just thought that was really weird and odd. I couldn't, it irritated me. It irritated me,
Yes.
and I would complain about it so bitterly until my father was finally just tired of my complaining and was like, "Fine, just make your own films." And I was like,
Yeah.
"No," and I didn't know what that meant, and I was just like, "Fine, I'll make films." So I kind of had it in my head, like I'm gonna be a filmmaker. And then at the time, there was a late night viewing on TV of one of Spike Lee's films, School Days, which
Ah.
was a musical. We did a lot of musicals because it's a British
The
thing.
theater is big. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Mhm.
and I didn't understand the politics in the film that he was discussing. But at the beginning, when they introduced the film on TV, they said he was a Black filmmaker. So I was like, okay, great, Spike Lee,
I
Black filmmaker. I'm going to make films. So I just did a bunch of research, and at that time, when he was making films, he would have an accompanying book that he'd kind of like his journal he published. For I think his first 5 films, he did that. And I found out that he went to NYU. So I was like, great, I'll go to NYU. So I showed up to NYU, like, okay, I'm here to be a filmmaker. And I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And unlike my colleagues who were there because of their love of cinema and their passion, and, they had all these characters and stories that related to their heritage, I didn't have any of that. I came because I hated cinema so much, or I hated the cinema that we had.
Yes.
I also didn't know that there was any African cinema, because at that time, again, growing up on the African continent in an Anglophone country, we didn't have any African cinema that was widely available anywhere. And so by the end of my 4th year at NYU, I was actually pretty discouraged about being able to do cinema, because none of my teachers understood what I was doing, and these stories I was telling of all these fun people that I, initially set out to tell these stories about. Just, this was also pre-digital, pre-Nollywood. Nobody had ever like,
Yes.
who are you talking about? Who are these people?
I can relate
so,
totally.
yeah. And so my last year, Mantia Diawara gave a class in Africana Studies on African cinema. And that was the first introduction I had to the fact that there were African filmmakers that were working somewhere, and there all these films. And so I decided, all right, fine, I'm going to do a master's and study African cinema so that I would know who these people are. And all the people that I'd planned to study with, including Mantia, took a sabbatical the year I started.
Just when the doors were opening up, right?
My first semester
It's always
of
the
high
case.
school, they were like, bye, we're gone for
you have
2
to
years.
swim.
Yeah. And so
Go to the deep end of the pool and swim on your own.
I mean,
Yeah.
it was so disappointing. And so my advisor was like, well, have you heard of Mahen, and have you heard of the African Film Festival? Maybe you could intern with her or something. And I called you, and you were like, great, you should come over this afternoon.
We probably were, multitasking. We're like, another set pair of hands would be fantastic. And that's when you called,
Exactly. And so it was a wonderful opportunity for me, because at the time you were also, this was sort of like right when we were changing from analog to digital.
Right.
And so you were refiguring out your library. You had all these films that people had sent you over the years and decades, a lot on VHS. And you asked me to catalog the library that you had, which was, so I basically just I got my master's degree from sitting in your office and watching a bunch of films and writing about them, and then working at the festival and meeting these filmmakers, and that kind of
And
thing.
transcribing the publication also. You remember we were doing these mini sort of cassettes, and
Interviews.
then I think, yes, I remember you transcribing some of the text, the interviews.
Yeah.
That was going into 2003, the first publication. Yeah,
exactly. So that's the journey. That's how I got here.
Mm-hmm.
The question about my G status, technically I'm a 1. I was born here, but I want to say like 0.5 or 0.75 because I was born here and then I left when I was 5 years old, and I grew up on the continent. And I've always thought of myself as an immigrant because there's so many things that I don't know about American culture coming. I mean, I've now lived here for over 20 years, so I do know now. But, when I arrived, there's things that you learn about code switching where I can sound more American than I am. And so people would forget, and they'd always be like, "Oh, remember that show that we watched when we were kids?" And I was like, "Nah, I wasn't here, didn't watch it, don't know what you're talking about." So there's certain cultural things that I'm not a part of in this country. But then there's, being that I've been here for as long as I have now, and I've just learned things. There are things that I now know. So I'm a 1-ish.
Yes. And that's a 1-ish is a group of that is really mushrooming, when you think of the other day I was on a conference call for the Africa Center, and I was just so amazed that there's so many 1-ish who are, I think I was the oldest person definitely on the call. But I held my own, I think, I believe. And it's so impressive, and also from the Caribbean, the America, this sort of diaspora that is just really, I feel that's going to rule the world. It's this gives me hope. Let's put it that way.
It does. It gives me hope as well. And one of the things that I find really exciting about our presence and our presence and our ability to, like in my parents' time, when I was born here, my parents were students. And so there was a lot more unity, I think, in like the 70s, 80s, maybe even 60s, 70s, 80s, where, there was the civil rights movement here in the US, but there were also civil rights movements on the continent. And we were very much aware and a part of each other's freedom struggles, and people were going back and forth and getting refuge back and forth, and including the Caribbean, including Cuba, including Brazil, and all these different places where we were all sort of speaking to each other and using each other's resources. Using each other's resources.
North Africa, Nasser, the Bandung Conference. Right. There was that anchor of the pre-dawn of independence and also liberation. Yeah, the Pan-African movement was really solid then.
It was very strong, and we lost it along the way because of all the FBI and the COINTELPRO and all of these different things that, squashed the liberation movements in a number of different places and killed a lot of our leaders. And I think there's a period where we actually forgot, so there's a generation who grew up and they don't know about that. They don't know about, well, why are you here? So it becomes a little bit more xenophobic of like, why are you in my country taking our resources, which is just regurgitating sort of what's on the news. And I do think that we are at a time now where, because of the democracy of digital media and YouTube and things like that, we actually are beginning to sort of move back, where you see, for example, like
ownership.
Protesters who are getting information from the Palestinians on like how to tear gas and here, what are you people doing?
Can you hear me?
Each other, able to take cues from each other and understand that our struggle is actually still connected because we still have the same struggle. And as a filmmaker and a media maker, I think that it's so important to be able to see those things and also them display them, tell stories about them, because those are important parts of our heritage, you know. So
no, that's why film is so
I'd love to.
Yeah, it really is. It anchors, you know, your parents' generation, and of course mine years and decades before, had something that anchored all of them. You know, there was that unified front fighting for something. And then, of course, I always say, coming into my generation, a dream was deferred because there was this deem, you know, this, you know, the domino effect of one coup after the other. And, you know, like you said, the infiltration of intelligent, secret service intelligence, breaking up a lot of, you know, I mean, now you have this film, what is it called? Judas and the Black Messiah. Yeah, that is an example of what actually was taking place, but throughout the diaspora in Africa. And but, you know, that dream that was deferred is now alive and, you know, kicking, you know. Film really is a quick study.
It's really important. It's very, very important. So I'm proud to be part of the tribe.
I'm supposed to also ask you did you bring an heirloom to show us? Share with us? Yes, let's see.
Ditty, which is a piece of a kanga, and a kanga is a type of fabric that's very popular in East Africa. And what separates it from a lot of the fabrics that you see in other parts of the continent, because everybody has their styles of fabric, is that we have somewhere in here, but we have these printed sort of sayings on the fabrics that are sort of, some can be funny, some can be, you know, kind of tongue-in-cheek or different things, but they're sort of
like
multi-use
cartoons.
Yeah, here we go. There it is somewhere. So this is my little kanga scarf that reminds me of home and is specific to East Africa and Tanzania, where I'm from. And I love being able to represent my culture with tiny little things like that.
Yeah, it's comforting, right?
It is. It's my little security in New York.
I'm so happy that we had this moment, at least, to connect early in the new year, and I look forward to, you know, giving you that hug and giving you my flowers in person. Meanwhile, let that aroma engulf you, continue to engulf you, and thank you so much, Ekwa. Keep doing what you're doing. We're so proud of you. Thank you. And Richard?
Thank you.
Wow, what a great story. Thank you very much for sharing. My name is Richard Pelzer. I'm the Director of Communications and Marketing for the G Project. As Alyssa Chrisman mentioned in the beginning, we are a public art project. I would love to invite everyone to our website, which is gproject.org. And I ask you to please sign up for all of our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and now this new YouTube channel. If you are new to our YouTube channel, I ask everyone to please subscribe right there below. And we would love to actually hear any comments. So please catch us every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for a new story. And we ask you to please share your project. And we ask the question, what is your G status? Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you soon.